Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn Hart Bennett, and today I'm going to read chapter 33 from the third leg of the 5,000-mile journey that the seven sisters make from London, England, to the Salt Lake Valley. And the name of it is Seven Sisters, the Trek, chapter 33. After feeling down all that day, everyone had mostly forgotten about Buster by the next morning and fell back into their regular pioneer routine as they performed their chores quickly, and the company got off to an early start. The children had to stay with their guardian until after the noon break. Then their guardians until after the noon break. Then they planned to run ahead and play. When that blessed time came, they happily took off running together, with their playmates, and ran toward the front of the wagon train. When they almost got to their destination, Fanny, who was barefoot, suddenly screamed and fell to the ground. "What is it, Fanny?" questioned Phoebe, fearfully looking around to see if it had anything to do with a snake. Oh, I stepped on a prickly pear," she cried. "Ouch, ouch!" "Susanna told you not to go barefoot," said Phoebe unsympathetically. Blood was falling in big drops from the bottom of Fanny's foot. "It looks like there are two thorns in there pretty deep. Let me pull them out." No, it will hurt too badly," she cried. "Well then, we better have you wait here until our wagon catches up. Then you can have Susanna look at them. She'll know what to do." Fanny kept crying as though the pain was growing worse. "You know," said Phoebe, "if those thorns came out, your foot would feel a lot better." "No, I want to wait." "You're going to miss all the fun today," reasoned Phoebe. "I don't care. It hurts." The children were disappointed that their fun had been curtailed. "Do something, Phoebe," pleaded Matthew. Suddenly, Phoebe cried, "Oh, look, Fanny! Indians, quick!" Fanny sat up in alarm and looked in the direction Phoebe was pointing, along with the other children, who momentarily believed her. A second later, Phoebe grabbed the two thorns with her fingertips, and before Fanny could even say, "Ouch!" Phoebe jerked them right out of her foot. "Got 'em!" she cried triumphantly, holding them up. The children laughed with relief when they realized there weren't any Indians and that Phoebe was just trying to distract Fanny. Fanny was astonished. She didn't feel a thing, and the thorns were out. "You scared me, Phoebe, but you got them out, so I guess I should thank you." "You kids run ahead and go play," urged Phoebe. "I'll stay with Fanny and wrap her foot with a ruffle from her petticoat. Then we'll catch up to you." The children said their goodbyes and happily took off to the front of the wagon train. After a few games, Phoebe and Fanny rejoined them, and Otto got an idea. "We've all got some mighty fine treasures in our pockets," he said, "and I'm thinking we should each toss one of them into my hat. I'll go up over that hill right in front of us and put all the treasures on the ground and place my hat over them. Then all of you line up down at the bottom of the hill and race for the things under the hat. The first ones to slide their hands under the hat without lifting it up can have everything they can grab. Get it?" "We get it," yelled the children eagerly. "Put your best treasure in," encouraged Otto, "or it won't be worth racing for." The children fished around in their pockets and started dropping their prized trinkets into the hat. Phoebe dropped in a clear blue rock. Matthew dropped in an arrowhead. And just to make it interesting, Otto threw in a coin, even though he wouldn't be racing. Fanny found a pretty painted bead that she parted with. Annie dropped in a baby spoon with a rose carved on the handle. Bradford found a pair of spectacles to donate. Each child's mouth was watering just thinking about the possibility of winning the various trinkets. "Maybe we should give the girls and the little kids a head start," suggested Matthew sportingly, "since we older kids can run faster." "We don't need any special treatment," snapped Phoebe. "Yeah, just don't be jumping the signal to run," Fanny chided. Matthew boasted, "That hat and everything under it are mine." "Are you sure about that?" taunted Phoebe. "Sure, I'm sure." "And you also thought you were going to win the marble tournament on the Amazon," she needled. Matthew's face colored, recalling his defeat and black eye from Phoebe. "All I'm saying is, mark my words, to the rabbit goes the spoils." The children giggled and lined up while Otto bounded up over the hill. They were glad he was setting up the race and couldn't participate on account of him knowing exactly where the hat was placed. Nobody could probably beat him anyway with his extra long legs. After what seemed like a long time, Otto came to the brow of the hill and yelled down to the children, When you get to the top of the hill, you need to look for the hat among the sagebrush. That will make the race a little more even for everybody. Are you ready?" "Yes," the children shouted. Otto raised his arm. "On your marks, get set, go!" The children took off running, dodging rocks and sagebrush as they went. They were in close proximity to each other until they started up the incline. Then several of the little ones began tripping and falling over the other children's feet or obstacles in their path. One by one, they fell down and lay there either laughing or crying because they were out of the running. Matthew was in the lead and was trying hard to extend the length between him and the twins, who were right on his heels. Fanny's sore foot wasn't slowing her down one bit. The twins were exerting every possible muscle to catch him, and the Button children were right behind them. The incline was steeper than it looked, and those left running were starting to feel the combination of heat and exertion working on their bodies. They were panting mightily when they got to the top. Upon reaching the summit, they frantically scanned the prairie before them and tried to spot the precious hat. Matthew ran to the left a few paces, and not seeing anything, ran to the right. Then, spying a dark object about a stone's throw away, he took off again. Everyone else saw what he saw and followed after him. Otto was enjoying watching all the action from the top of the hill. As the runners got closer and closer, he started to yell, "Remember, don't lift up the hat." Matthew didn't dare look behind him to see how close the next runner was. He knew he had to keep his eyes on the prize. The last few yards, he put on a burst of speed and dived head first toward the hat. Sliding on the dusty ground with his hands stretched out in front of him, he could feel success within his grasp. His hands were within inches of going under the hat to claim his prizes. "Victory!" he yelled triumphantly as his hands slipped under the hat and closed down on something soft. "Ew, what's this?" Matthew exclaimed as he retracted his hands from under the hat. The others gathered around, disappointed they weren't going to get any of the prizes. But on a second look, they were truly glad, because Matthew was sitting there looking at his greenish-brown soiled hands. He had captured a good-sized pile of wet buffalo dung. The children started to snicker when they figured out what had happened. Then Otto trotted up and began hee-hawing loudly. Soon everyone caught on and joined in with his laughter. "You won the prize, Matthew, just like you said you would," he tormented as he bent over in helpless laughter. Matthew finally realized what had happened. Otto had set up the whole thing. There never was going to be any prizes under the hat. Otto had pulled a pretty good joke, not really caring who won the race, just so someone grabbed the sticky poo. By now, practically everyone was on the ground in fits of laughter. Matthew was deeply mortified as he rose to his feet, stood looking at his hands. Then he moved toward Otto, who was still bent over laughing. Seeing his opportunity, he took his hands and grasped Otto's head firmly and began rubbing his hair vigorously with the gooey mess on his hands. "I hope you don't mind if I use your hair for a wiping towel, Otto," he laughed. Otto was certainly not expecting this response from Matthew. He was caught unaware, but quickly recovered. "Why, you little jackanapes, come back here." Matthew had taken off running in a circle to dodge Otto, but Otto sprang at him, captured his legs, and took him down to the ground. There the two rolled and tried to wipe as much goo as they could on each other. Finally, laughter overtook them, and they both lay on the ground, totally helpless, as the other children gathered around to enjoy the fun. "You got Matthew good, Otto," said Phoebe, "but he got even with you pretty good, too." "I think we can call it a successful joke on both of you obstreperous, loquacious adolescents," laughed Fanny. "What did you call us?" Matthew asked. "3 words that describe you two, that's what." "They sound like German words or something," said Otto. "You'll have to ask your mother what they mean," Phoebe teased. "Now, before we get this stinking mess off..." "Oh, excuse me. You'll have to ask your mothers what they mean," Phoebe teased. "Not before we get this stinking mess off," said Matthew. Both boys knew they needed to retreat to their wagons to get some lye soap and then find the nearest stream. It would take a good deal of scrubbing to remove the gooey mess and the horrible smell that was engulfing their noses. It was a good thing it was late in the afternoon and the wagons were stopping soon. When the Dixie train got to Fort Laramie the next day, they were more than ready to replenish their supplies. It was a major resupply point for the Mormon companies, Gentile immigrants going to Oregon, and would-be gold diggers on their way to California. Their leaders cautioned the saints that This was one of about 3 places along their way that they would come in direct contact with Gentiles, and they needed to go about their business and not engage anyone they met there. However, when they arrived inside the fort, the comments began. Children, stay close by. You never know if the Mormons will put a spell on you or steal you away. Detestable Mormons. What are you Mormons going to pay for your supplies with? What are you going to pay for your supplies with? Gold plates? The Saints couldn't believe they were still being ridiculed about their religion this far west. They hurried around the general store to make their purchases so they could get away from the persecutors. They bought flour, beans, rice, bacon, and ham, and then someone discovered a sack of potatoes in the corner. The word got passed to the other saints, and their mouths began to water as they looked at the large brown potatoes. The only potatoes they had ever seen since they left home in England were on the Amazon, and they were yellow, small, and had sprouts coming out of them. Should we get a sack of them, sisters? Asked Eleanor. It's up to you, said Caroline. Remember, I don't have any money to put toward it. Let's buy some, said Lavinia. I've been saving my money for just such a luxury. Aunt Lucy and Susanna agreed, and 2 potatoes each were purchased. They could hardly wait until supper to throw their potatoes in the hot coals to bake. When Susanna learned that Marcus was a herder that evening from 9 until 1 o'clock, she put the twins to bed early and decided to take him one of the extra potatoes she had baked. The sisters had each tried one at supper and had foundered on them. Susanna balanced the potato on a plate in one hand and held a candle in the other as she picked her way over to where the cattle were grazing. Marcus and several other teamsters were riding their horses around the outside of the herd, trying to keep the cattle from wandering away. The moon was not quite full, but it was still very beautiful and provided enough light so she could make out which horseman was Marcus. Captain Fielding, she called. He didn't answer. She called a little louder. Captain Fielding. He heard her this time and rode over to her. What are you doing here, Sister Watts? He said. I brought you a baked potato. You did, he said, getting down off his horse. Well, bless your sweet little heart. I brought you some butter and salt, too, she said. Sister Watts, are you trying to get on my good side? Susanna blushed, but he couldn't see it. We ate some of these for supper, and they were so delicious, I thought you might like one, too. We cooked it in the fire, so it's rather burned on the outside, but it's just right on the inside. I'm so hungry I could eat guts, feathers, and all, he said, laughing. She wasn't sure what he was talking about. Guts, feathers, and all? That's a little saying we have when we are so hungry we don't care what we're eating. Oh, I see, somewhat. She held the plate out in front of him as he cautiously squeezed the potato to split it open. Then Susanna fished a little cup out of her apron pocket and held it so he could scoop some butter out with a fork she gave him. Then she reached into her pocket and took a pinch of the salt she had poured in there. May I do the honors? You surely may, he said. She sprinkled the salt over the top. He took the first bite. She waited for his response. Oh, this is really good, he said. I haven't tasted anything like this since I left for my mission. We raised a few spuds in our garden in Bear Lake Valley. Spudge? She questioned. Yep, spuds. That's our nickname for potatoes. Susanna was thrilled that her spud was received with such enthusiasm. When he finished the potato, he ventured, How would you like to ride around the herd with me for a little while before you go back? Why, I'd love to, she said, blowing out her candle and putting the plate, fork, and cup on a rock. Marcus got on his horse and pulled her up. Tell me more about the Bear Lake Valley, she said happily, as she put her arms tightly around his waist. Well, in addition to spuds, we grow the most delicious raspberries you can imagine. They get as big as my thumb. Really? I'd like to taste them. You might just get your chance, Sister Watts. Susanna was enraptured as they spent the next half hour on his horse, talking and laughing while he tended the cattle in the moonlight. That's the end of chapter 33. Over and out.